like daring to trust yourself to really take that step, that you're not going to repeat the mistakes of all the examples that we've seen that have done it in shitty ways, that you've integrated that, and you have the capacity to listen, and just trusting that level of care that you have,
Mm.
um yeah.
Yeah. Well, this really brings to mind the difference between fantasy and reality. And in preparing for this podcast, I wanted to quote you because it's such a good quote. And I think it gets to the heart of what you're speaking to right now, which is, I'm quoting you, people fantasize about having more time, but I don't think most people are equipped to handle it. And the true statement here is that's true of money. People fantasize about having more of it, but they're not equipped to handle it.
Mm.
And one of the very common fantasies that I think is a part of the zeitgeist you're speaking to, and self-trust, and will I repeat the same mistakes? And I feel like it's worth creating a little asterisk there. Is like, and you probably will make some of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
same
yeah.
mistakes.
You won't do it perfectly, but yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's not a good reason to
Right.
not get
That's
into
very
it
true.
and make a mess, because welcome to the
Uh,
club. Delaying your humanity is just delaying your humanity and accessing a different part of the human mess.
Beautiful.
Um, Mess in every direction, frankly. But more so to the point, money is a revealing of character. So if you have more money, you just are going to become more of who you already are, because it's
Mm.
a fuel for expression. It's a fuel of basically agency. And you can express more of who you are in this capitalistic society if you have money. And if you have less money, you essentially can express yourself in more limited or more constrained dimensions.
Mm.
And the tie-in that I want to try to make here around like self-trust and self-efficacy is that it's useful when someone is feeling like they want to up their game in the arena of life, to take the assumption that you have the exact amount of money that you can handle. And if you could handle more money, you would have more money.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, I can tell that I wanna chew on that a bit more. So, can you maybe give an example of that in your own life of how you've seen that play out?
Sure. Yeah.
And then maybe like talk about the change in wealth when you do have these moments where your maybe capacity for holding wealth does change, and what is the how do you track that in terms of maybe you have more space, but did you create that space? Like, yeah.
100%. So, one of the overarching themes here that I wanted to thread the needle on in this conversation is the movement towards synchronizing our money story, so our deeply internalized beliefs about money and how that's shaped inside of us from our conditioning, but also what we've maybe been able to do as we self-author, and the synchronization of that money story with our level of skill. And level of skill is really about a learnable, repeatable technical ability that translates directly into some kind of value.
Mm.
So, money story and synchronization of skill. So, I just wanted to offer that as some framing, because in my own life, this has been so obvious at like every stage, really. But I can most distinctly thread the needle for where I am in my career now. As I currently sit here, I'm 36, and I have been a fully self-sustained entrepreneur for 5 years or so. So I've been doing everything in regards to dotting my own I's, crossing my own T's, being my own boss, doing all my own client acquisition, delivering the quote unquote product of my service, etc. Which in the life of an entrepreneur is definitely still early stage. I think
Right.
if I'm lucky, I'm still in Q1 of a 4-quarter, hopefully masterpiece. We'll see.
Hmm.
Definitely building in that direction.
You're crushing it, by the way, man.
Yeah, it's going well. I have a lot to be thankful for. I feel both lucky and fortunate, and also put a lot of energy and time into the right thing. So it's in fruition right now.
Hmm.
But to dial back the clock and to try to make the point that you were asking about, I'm 36 now. And when I was 25, 26, kind of actually close to your age, I knew I wanted to be doing what I'm doing now. I remember I was staying at a friend's place and they were in one of these quote unquote ceremonial, transformational community spaces. And they were offering their work and they were pretty well established in their work. And I was helping out and just kind of living in their space and just kind of in one of these intermediary nomad periods of my life. And I remember, because it was somewhat fueled by these quote unquote visionary compounds that were quite abundant at the time, having these moments of seeing that I wanted to work with a certain kind of extraordinary individual at the intersection of their deep healing and their self-expression and, being a high impact leader. The energy was so obvious to me. I was like, this is my path. This is my dharma.
Hmm.
This is who I am. But my technical skillfulness to execute on that was practically none. I had zero actual training in holding therapeutic space. I hadn't gone to grad school yet. I had a fair amount of learned wisdom just by having been around transformational spaces and holding space for friends and doing some, preliminary work, we could say, in regards to my own inner work and my own inner healing. But I had to go through, I would say, 5 years or so of actual training, like
Yeah.
actually developing skill. And
Hmm.
so let's say I was 26 at the time. My money story was pretty optimistic. My sense of that I could be abundant was pretty good, but my
Yeah.
skill level was completely asynchronous with my ambition. And it
Yeah.
took many, many years of real hard work, devotion, mentorship, making all sorts of mistakes, getting some triumphs, et cetera, to close
Right.
that gap. Where now I sit and I'm like very optimistic because my money story and my skill level are pretty synced up these days.
Yeah.
So I would offer that as like a pretty primary orienting model in regards to like what is our money story and then how
Hmm.
does that sync up with our actual technical ability or skillfulness.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for the example. Another way maybe to say that would be that um, the value that you are receiving through monetary compensation is synchronized to the value that you're actually providing, right? And I think, like you're saying, I have a very similar experience where my excitement and knowing that financial abundance and all of this and thriving doing work like this is completely possible in these visionary moments. Like, yes, it's true, but then there's a more like human getting down to the nuts and bolts of reality when you're actually trying to get clients and then you're working with clients and and I feel that part of the synchronizing of those two, of the value of what you're providing and the value that you're receiving, is real time feedback, is like evidence. And so, um, this is kind of coming into the conversation of sitting on the bench versus getting on the field. And I think assuming that you're doing something that's not potentially dangerous or something like this, like yes, acquiring skills and training and getting to a place where you feel good enough to maybe offer something. And again, we're not just talking about being a coach or a therapist. There's so many different ways that this can look, a service. Um, but then like running some test trials and maybe you start off with offering it for free or a donation or something like this and getting really real-time feedback because you're going to be able to tell if what you're doing is working, if it's providing value. And again, if it's not, being able to eat a slice of humble pie and say back to the drawing board, because this is the thing is if the idea is there and if you feel connected to it, then it might just be a matter of iterations and refinement before you actually get something that works. And but I just feel like there's such an important piece of stacking the evidence of real-time feedback. I've seen, oh my gosh, this is working, this is providing value, and that helps synchronize then asking for receiving monetary compensation for it, receiving the value from them.